The Third Man, directed by Carol Reed, is unusual for a British film of the late 1940s. Being shot on location in Vienna with an international cast makes the film notably transnational. Only Trevor Howard, fresh from Brief Encounter, would have been considered anything approaching a British star of the time. This makes sense when considering the film's international backing from the American producer David O Selznick. Selznick's financing of an expensive lighting rig beyond the budget of most other contemporary British films, along with the setting and Reed's celebrated use of canted angles in his magnificent cinematography, give the film an aesthetic of European noir. It's also a black market mystery with a hero who thinks he's in a western. However, being released as a London Films production with a screenplay by Graham Greene, The Third Man has much to say to a modern audience about contemporary British attitudes to both America and post-war Europe that perhaps reflects the international spirit of the time, before the full onset of the Cold War. The Third Man is certainly a long way from Hollywood. While the American Joseph Cotten as Holly Martins is the ostensible hero of the film, investigating his friend Harry Lime's apparent death, he's portrayed as a hack writer, impulsive, gullible, often drunk, unsophisticated and foolish. Meanwhile, Howard, as Major Calloway, is measured, calm and decent. That the other main American character, Harry Lime, is ultimately revealed as a scheming opportunist and betrayer adds to the positive image of a moralistic Britain as foremost among the post-war Allies' police force in the period of gradually crumbling international relations. However, Orson Welles' famous portrayal of Lime as a charming anti-hero gives The Third Man another memorable and complex detail. It is perhaps Welles's most famous role outside of Citizen Kane, with the villainy downplayed in favour of an attractive, cavalier opportunism that maximises his immorality and positions him as a modern libertarian. Reed's direction and Greene's screenplay avoid pandering to simplistic Hollywood-style characterizations. The Russian characters, for example, are not portrayed as the stereotype villains that Selznick would have preferred, nor are the Austrians, despite the shadow of the war-torn city and the black market plot. The film's release in the immediate post-war years begs understanding of what effect Reed's use of long passages of unsubtitled German would have had on a contemporary international audience. Thus, although The Third Man maximises its use of monochrome film stock to create striking contrasts in light and shade, the ideology is far from black and white. As Martins gradually discovers, everyone in the film is a different shade of moral grey. The repeated references to Martins as a writer of cheap and simplistic westerns is cleverly woven into the film's narrative and wickedly subverted. The film ends with a western-style shootout, though Martins' shooting of Harry is a mutually agreed murder, note Lime's nod of assent. Similarly, Martin's failure to win the girl at the end subverts the classic Hollywood expectation and presents one of the greatest final shots in film history. However, Selznick considered the film to be unfit for American audiences and ordered cuts to the cynical tone of Reed's opening voiceover and Anna's closing snub of Martin's, instead fading the shot before she walks past him. The effect of this version is to make Martins more traditionally heroic and less of the poor chap of the British version. Also, that nod of Lime's at the end must have nudged the American Hays Code's aversion to suicide or the hero as murderer. Perhaps it was waved through, as it isn't quite either. Either way, The Third Man's contemporary and ongoing success proves that Reed's direction read the British and European mindset right. The film's success in the USA in Selznick's re-edited version perhaps suggests that his reading of the American film-going taste was correct too, as it was not until much later that Reed's version was released there. The film should also be considered as part of the body of work by Graham Greene. Many of the writer's familiar concerns are present in the film: a sense of lapsed Catholic guilt, an anti-hero at the centre of the story, a dim view of British diplomats abroad. Learning that Orson Welles was frequently absent from the set also adds a fresh understanding of the film, discovering that the teasing evasiveness of Harry Lime from both us, the audience, as well as the film's characters is more down to Reed having to cope with a missing star than directorial decision. And this makes the frequent use of shadow, long shot, etc. that obscures the character take on a new meaning. It is for that famous Prater wheel scene that Welles is justly lauded for his performance. Welles was forever haunted by the character of Harry Lime after its success. He was often mistaken for its director, to his annoyance, though his only contribution outside of acting is the insertion of the famous cuckoo clock speech. He also grew to hate the routine of arriving at a restaurant only to have any musicians strike up the Harry Lime theme when he was spotted. This didn't stop him playing a resurrected Harry Lime in a later radio series based on the film when he needed the money. The Prata wheel sequence begins with a typically low-angle shot from Reed. Martins is small in the frame. Cotton shows his character's nerves about the impending meeting by smoking and fiddling with a chain. Welles makes his entrance, initially tiny in a long shot. He spots his friend and strides purposefully towards the camera with confidence, a big smile on his face. Still smiling, Welles proffers a hand of friendship, which Cotton does not accept. Welles has Lime not visibly react to the snub, but continues to smile. Welles's characteristic baritone voice sounds upbeat, pleased to see his friend, but at the same time he circles Cotton, who has to keep turning to maintain his gaze. In a few seconds, the power relationship between the two characters has been established, and it is clear who is currently in control. Cotton is playfully slapped with a glove, an indicator of familiarity and a playground history between the two. Welles keeps Lime's tone brisk, and his "come on" leads into the next shot, showing magnanimity to the ride attendant before we find ourselves in the wheel. The interior is now a confined space, with the backdrop moving dangerously through the window. Dramatically, this puts Martins in peril and reflects the shifting power dynamics between the two characters. On a more straightforward level, it also makes a dialogue-heavy scene in a small environment much more visually interesting, and links to the monologue about people as dots. Here the two actors show off their long experience of having worked together for years on stage and on radio. Their speech overlaps as they battle for dominance, both attempting to assert their own agenda and avoid each other's lines of inquiry. Welles in particular has Lime avoid pausing, distracting Martins with trivial complaints about indigestion and childish excuses. His easy smile and cheeky demeanour show how the character must have a long history of talking his way out of trouble. Simultaneously, he prowls around the space, having removed his coat, indicating ownership of the environment. He touches Cotton's lapel, invading his space. In return, Cotton remains unmoved, even dour. His reluctance to engage suggests his seriousness and refusal to be distracted. At this, Welles has Lime change tactic. He turns off the charm and lowers his tone. He turns away, perhaps breaking eye contact to consider his options. Now the two men face different directions in a fairly tight two-shot. They both have a different agenda. With Cotton's back turned, Welles drops a smile and his whole face visibly darkens. As the other man turns, Welles readjusts the smile. To the audience, his insincerity and danger are clear. As a piece of actor blocking, this sequence is subtle and superb. In a wider shot, Lime opens the door. Was that possible, even in the 1940s? Either way, the space now has become more perilous. A close, over-the-shoulder shot positions us with Martins as Welles keeps his tone even and his eyes wide in unbroken contact. The reasonable tone is a counterpoint to the evident threat. Here Cotton keeps his own tone even, though a reverse shot shows him holding onto the doorframe a little tighter, suggesting that he is aware of his peril. Maintaining the close shots emphasises that this is the peak moment of conflict. Martins reveals that Lime isn't as safe as he had assumed. Cotton keeps his eyes slightly narrowed. This is his trump card. In response, Welles gives Lime a short silence. This, along with a microphysiognomy, the tiny movements of facial expressions revealed by the close proximity of the shot, indicate that he is taking in this new information and reassessing the situation. Welles's eyes turn his gaze inwards. Harry is thinking this through. The smile returns, reaching the eyes last. It is clearly back to the bonhomie as a tactic. A wider shot gives Welles the chance to be more expansive in his gestures as he shuts the door and vibrates his voice with a suggested laugh at their foolishness. "As if I'd do anything to you," he cheerily lies. "Or you to me," he adds with a tone that modulates between threat and pleading. We can see here exactly how Lime got away with everything as a naughty schoolboy. He shuts the door, and behind him the wheel begins the descent to ground level, indicating that the dangerous moment has passed. Welles then looms up into a close shot, then back, with more expansive gestures and maintaining the jovial tone, putting the unpleasantness of the previous moment behind him. The camera hasn't moved. It is Harry who dominates now. Cotton's line about believing in God prompts a tone of mock hurt, which gives way to an indication to look at what he has written in the condensation. A love heart for Anna. Harry is in temptation mode, offering a prize in return for cooperation. The arch tone of "What do you believe in?" is loaded with implication. Finally, the pair exit the cab and we get a return to the childlike complaints of discomfort. But, without a pause, Welles blocks Cotton's path with his arm and presents the tone of doing a friend a favour. His tone is confidential, offering vulnerability as he suggests that he needs someone to trust. It is a complex mix of appeals to the heart and assertive authority with an undercurrent of threat as his pitch lowers and his tone indicates a warning. Harry is going to finish the meeting on his terms, and Holly is not able to get a word in. Finally, without a pause, into the famous, unscripted, at least by Greene, monologue about brotherly love and cuckoo clocks, delivered with a chuckle at the naughtiness of what he is saying as both character and actor. He breaks the rules because he can. As he says all this, he's putting on his gloves, indicating that he is finished. With that, he's off, with a literal spring in his step.